We're going to get it over to Steve Smith and Bill Self right now. Smitty, John Wall has that shine, doesn't he?
He does. I mean, he has that type of ability where you want to watch him play. You turn on Kentucky because you want to see what he does. The one thing I question is, how is they going to implement him in the offense with the Washington Wizards? Because you look at the Washington Wizards team, everybody needs the basketball in their hand. Right. And that's the one thing, from the bigs, Andre Blatch, down to Nick Young, down to all the point guards. How is Coach Saunders going to separate this and put the basketball in his hands when you have a Gilbert Arenas? Now this becomes an interesting dynamic, because when these guys don't play off the basketball, all of my big-time ego guys, Flip Saunders, I think, has his hands full with this team.
That is true. But one thing that John can do, he can make the game easier for their better players. So Gilbert needs the ball in his hands, but Gilbert may like running off a few screens and get some open looks that he doesn't have to just go one-on-one every time. So I think it's a no-brainer pick. I think he will be a superstar. I do think it'll take time. And I think this is just the first step for the Wizards. This is a big step, but certainly there's more steps to follow.
And I think the steps is you got to start trading a lot of people. You got to start getting a lot of people around and make sure you surround this team.
Who would be the first guy that you say a lot of trades? What would you need and who would you trade?
Well, I think, Kenny, at this point,
GM Smitty.
You know, I think you need a big-time two-guard that's a veteran that can play with him to help him along, or like a Kirk Heinrich. I love that pick. I think for sure, and I know it's obviously going to be hard to do this, you got to get rid of Gilbert Arenas. I think Gilbert Arenas is such a great talent. Both of them need the basketball. Gilbert is a prideful player. He's just not going to give the basketball to John Wall, especially when you're not in a winning situation. So I think Gilbert is the first guy that has to leave for the Washington Wizards.
That's going to be a tough one.
I know that.
I got to tell you, I just believe, I'm in the minority on this one. I think these two guys can play together because I think the Wizards have the biggest hammer in the history of hammers. Gilbert Arenas has no standing. He has no rights. He has no anything. He's coming off a 50-game suspension for doing one of the dumbest things I've ever seen an athlete do. If he's not with the program is that kid gets the ball. No, number 11, number 12, whatever he's wearing, he's the new sheriff in town. He gets the basketball. If you're not with us, you can go sit down. We got to pay you, but you don't have to be here. And if they can't get Gilbert to understand it, and if Gilbert can't understand that, now I think he can, because he's not a dumb guy. He's a smart guy.
He's saying the right things right now,
He's got to understand that. It's not his show anymore. He had his chance. It's over. He has to be a complimentary player now. And if he can't get with that, then he's got to sit down.
Well, I would say this about Gilbert Arenas. He's a guy who can get the easiest 20 points on that team.
Right.
So to take the ball out of his hand, you actually limit what he actually can do. So it's not really about being, I don't even think prideful. Do you take your best player, because he's still their best player.
Agreed.
Do you take their best player and say, you're not going to be the best player, and you have to learn, and we'll sacrifice games and situations to develop someone else? I don't know if that's fair for him either. I just think that that's not a great fit. But I still think that Gilbert Arenas is a two-guard. But he's just not a two-guard with a guy like John Wall at the one. But I think certain other guys at the one, he would be great
pass first
as a two-guard.
But
he is not that with a guy like John Wall at the one.